I was watching a video this morning. From time to time, I like to skip across a video of very, very intelligent people, right? It was a video with a Buddhist scholar, theoretical physicist, a cosmologist, a mathematician. They were all discussing reality. They were all discussing certain topics, certain facts, right? And it was a good discussion. It was civil. Everyone was pointing out their view. And one thing I missed up until now was I always lumped science as I did Catholicism, atheism, Mormonism, Muslims, science, whatever it was. And you've got atheists and Catholics who are in continuous argument, right? And not an argument in a negative way, just they see the world differently and they think they're right and the other side is crazy. Republicans, Democrats, any type of political, any type of religious. The one thing I missed with science is I always lumped it into one big part of what we do, what we discuss, what we're looking for, how we find answers, and how we go about it. But in this video, it made me realize that even in the science community, it is no different than the religious community, right? You have cosmologists who think reality and the existence and consciousness and this and that is one way. You have mathematicians who look at it in a different way. You have physicists and theoretical physicists who look at it in a completely different way. And in a sense, they're arguing, right? They went back and forth. Especially going after the Buddhist scholar, and the Buddhist scholar held his own, did well. The theoretical physicist is incredibly intelligent. Many books, the way they speak about these topics, it's very hard to argue with them. It's very hard to find any holes in their theories, right? But they're all going about it in their own different ways, their own different viewpoints, which, again, they are so intelligent. It's very hard to pull very intelligent people away from their theories or how they were raised or what their specialty or expertise is in. And it made me realize that even with that, as I don't understand theoretical physics like this guy does and never will, I don't understand cosmology or the mathematics of what the current mathematician was talking about in that video, it still makes me understand and brings me to the same point that we've always discussed. What is past that? What is past religion? What is past politics? What is past science? What is past all of these theories, right? As Adyashanti said, before enlightenment, there's theory. After, there's a knowing. And anything that these boys could come up with, and every one of them's above a 170 IQ, some are pushing 200. Anything they could possibly come up with is still something they created with the finite mind. And that is the foundation that we're missing. You have a finite mind. No matter if you have a 100 IQ or a 220 IQ. You have a finite mind. You have a tool that's finite, and it is trying to understand the infinite. There's a gap that cannot be crossed. There's no bridge from the finite to the infinite. Not with the tool we're using. And I'm always reminded of the other quote that everyone, I'm sure we've talked about before, is all we're doing as we figure this stuff out with the mind is rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. It's going to end the same way. We are not going to figure this out. We're not going to miss the iceberg. We are just going to constantly rip around in the ocean and try to figure out things that we just simply can't figure out. Not with the finite mind. We came from nothing. Nothing. And every theory you could possibly think of that any of these guys talked about, any religious leaders talked about, any level of consciousness is talked about, they're all just, in a sense, if you boil down to the basis of all of these ideas and theories and ways we're thinking about how we came about, why we're here, God or no God, all of that are pretty crazy. They don't carry weight, right? There's really no foundation. because we have a finite tool in the mind that is like a computer system, right? Ones and zeros, coding. It's always got to drop 2 1, it's always got to drop 2 0. You got a coin, you spin it, it's always going to drop to heads or tails. We're dealing with a tool that has no neutral, has no silence, has no being in the moment. It is always going to look for a right or wrong. It's always going to be a theoretical physicist versus a cosmologist. It's going to be a Republican versus a Democrat. It's going to be a Catholic versus an atheist. And it reminds me of a story to bring home the point of how, no matter how smart we are, how biased we become in what we study, what we learn, how we grew up, who our influences were. And if we're not able to understand that the finite mind is finite, and we can't get past that, and we can't work past that, and we don't have the courage to let that go, what happens, no matter how smart we are? And it's the story of a great king, and he was trying to figure out some answers. And he went about it in a different way. And the story is what part of the elephant. I'm sure some of you have heard this, and I'm going to butcher it, but you'll get the idea. He took a bunch of blind guys, blind women, blind men. He brought an elephant in, and he had each and every one of them, he had about 10 of them, touch a different part of the elephant. Remind you, they're blind. One grabbed the tail, one grabbed the hind end, one grabbed the hoof, one grabbed the trunk, one grabbed the ear, one grabbed the belly, but they had their hands all over. And after that, he had them all come in and start to discuss what they had touched. All 10 people had different descriptions of what they touched because they were touching different parts of the elephant. They didn't know. Right? Now, we think because we can see, we think because we're intelligent, we think because we're studying cosmology or astrophysics or theoretical physics or studying religious PhD in Catholicism or Jesus or Buddha or anything, we think our eyes are open, so we know. No, we're no different than the blind man touching the elephant. And we have our own biases because of the finite mind we have. So one was talking about the tail, one was talking about the hoof, one was talking about the trunk, one was talking about the ear, and that's how they described what they were touching. That's how he understood the descriptions of reality, the descriptions of how people went about their lives, what they saw, what they believed were different. That's a perfect example. And far be it from religion to be the only one that gets this incorrect. Science gets it incorrect. People get it incorrect. We all get it incorrect because of the tool we're using, the only tool we've ever understood to know or reference in the mind. We've got to get past the mind. We've got to spend time in silence. We've got to spend time transcending the mind, transcending our beliefs. We've got to have the courage to let all of that go, to truly understand what this is about, what truth is. Because anytime we experience a transcendent and then we try to describe it, it's over. We've ruined it. We've got our own biases. I'm looking through the world in the view of a mathematician. I'm looking through it as a Catholic would look through it. I'm looking through it as a Republican would look through it. And we're completely alienating this infinite universe and taking this infinite universe with our preferences, our biases, and our insecurities and fears and choices and cramming it through a pinhole and wondering why we can't figure this out. Point being, be okay letting all of your beliefs, your constructs, your ideas, let them all go for a little bit and just sit with it. Just see what happens. If we don't find a way to clear things up, to allow more people the clarity, to better understand that we've got to raise consciousness, that we've got to find that clarity, that we've got to let our ideas go, even though we can still figure out these ideas and enjoy the theories and enjoy the conversations and the arguments. At some point, we've got to get more people past that, to have the courage to let all of those beliefs and ideas go. And things will start to get better.